day. Good day, Freundschaft. I'm Jess. I am Jess Reimer, in fact. Born and bred Mennonite. I'm in my kitchen with you today. And I want to do a little talking about some information that gets us all on the same page, hopefully. And really just gives youth the knowledge they need to make choices that help them to live a life being who they want to be and who they know themselves to be, right? And also having a healthy sexuality. That's really the goal here. So I'm just kind of giving my counter away because at the same time we're going to make some SCHNETJE. So I don't have my apron on yet. I'm not quite ready to go. I got my house dress on. I thought I'd go a little all out for you all today and just, add some puff sleeves because that just takes it up a notch. And I am on video, so I wanted to put my best foot forward, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, I'm going to grab the flour. Grandma always said, most meals that you really enjoy can be made with flour, Crisco, oil, sugar, baking soda. But we're talking Raukuchen, SCHNETJE, Zwieback, pretty much everything good. And even schmonfat, right? With a bit of pork fat or a little grease of some kind. So anyway, lots can be done with those few ingredients. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. But I'm also going to focus on the idea of consent. Now, growing up, I didn't have, 2 cents to rub together when it came to talking about consent. So if I were to be in a group with you, I would say, what does that word even mean? What does that word consent mean to you? Well, the word consent, I'm just going to do this. I got to see my dress. I'm also wearing it when I go out tonight. So, yeah. What that word means, basically, is only yes means yes. But it is about way more than that. So give me a second while I grab my mixing bowl here. And then I'm going to be ready to go. Yeah, so it means only yes means yes. But it's a little more detailed than that. So only yes means yes. And that's kind of a verbal agreement that 2 people make together. Something they want to do together. Could be about anything. You use consent every day. So if I were to say, Jake, I want my 4th piece of SCHNETJE. Would you like to eat SCHNETJE with me? And Jake said, well, for sure I would. Heck yeah, I want to eat SCHNETJE with you all day. That would be consent, right? He's saying yes. It's clear. I know that. That's exactly what he wants, and we both want it, and there we go. We can eat SCHNETJE together till Jake gets called home to do whatever he's got to do in the evening. Hold on, I got to get my recipe book. This isn't quite working here. I don't have it memorized. So this is just about the cat's meow when it comes to recipes. See? For Jessie, love grandma. She is pretty much the only person in this world that calls me Jessie, and she's not here to do it anymore, so that's kind of sad. So when it comes to SCHNETJE, you need a recipe book if you're me, and if it comes to consent, you need a verbal agreement that happens between everybody who's going to be involved in the thing. So we're talking Jake and Jake, Mary and Peter, Frida and Henry, whoever it is that wants to do something together, they need to have that verbal agreement. So that's consent, yeah, right? Only yes means yes. It's also asking, listening, and respecting. So that asking doesn't have to be daunting. It doesn't have to be super serious. Sign on the dotted line if you would like to make out behind the shed in Gortitz next Friday. No, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be cute. It can be romantic. It can be in your own voice. It can be, Jake, I love the way you turn that steering wheel. I would love it if you would come pick me up and we would sit in your front seat and smooch. Do you want to? And then he could say, for sure. So, give me 1 second. I'm going to find the proper recipe. Then I'm going to keep talking about consent. So that asking, right? It doesn't have to be serious, intimidating, embarrassing, weird. Honestly, it just has to happen. No sex can happen without consent. It is really the only thing that is mandatory. There's a ton of other things you want to talk about. I'm going to get right into that later. But in terms of the thing that has to happen, consent has to happen. No sex can happen without consent, right? And when I'm talking about sex, I'm talking about any kind of thing that you're doing with another person that really, you know, where sex fluids are mixing, or people are, you know, having sexual feelings, thoughts, touching, that kind of thing. That all kind of goes under that umbrella, right? 1 second. So if I'm looking for SCHNETJE, I could say Mennonite dishes. I don't think so. Breads and rolls, that's where it would be. Yeah, 27. So I would suggest going out and getting yourself this really fantastic cookbook. And there's a ton of different bread in here. Raisin bread, brown bread, urban cheese bread. They're really getting eclectic in this. Oh, here's zwieback. I don't want to make zwieback. Zwieback is good the first 2 hours, and then it's no longer does it for me. Once it cools off, it's not my thing anymore. But zwieback, on the other hand, SCHNETJE, on the other hand, stays good for a couple days, in my opinion. Okay, Mom, where are you when I need you? Next video, I'm going to have my recipe ready to go before I even start. We've got buttermilk biscuits, baking powder biscuits. Why don't you call it SCHNETJE like I want you to? I think that's what we're talking about, baking powder biscuits, right? But there's no... Okay. Anyway, so we're talking about consent. I'm going to go for the baking powder biscuits. I believe those are the SCHNETJE. We're talking about consent. So it doesn't have to be this serious, daunting, you know, embarrassing, awkward thing. You just got to ask, right? So it can be cute, it can be sexy, it can be flirty, it can be in your own voice. It just has to happen. And it needs to be specific, right? So let's say you said to Jake, like, Jake, could you please smooch me on the neck? And Jake said, I would love to. Does that mean that you've also asked Jake to handle your zwieback? No, it doesn't. Does not mean that. So it has to be specific. It has to be each thing. People understand what's going on. Consent is specific, right? It's also ongoing. It's ongoing in the situation. So Jake and me, Jessie, sitting in the front of the pickup truck. And we've consented to some neck kissing, maybe some zwieback squeezing, and then something changes, right? Maybe Jake's not into it anymore. I can tell. It's called reading the room. You can read the pickup truck box too, right? We all have this skill. You read the room, you can tell something's changed. Maybe it's body language, maybe it's tone of voice, maybe it's maneuvers, whatever it is. Something's changed, that's when it's hands off the body, you check in. Hey Jake, you still good? Hey Jake, you want to go for that cruise instead? Right? That's how you kind of keep that consent happening throughout a situation. That's what I mean by ongoing. It's also ongoing throughout a relationship. Maybe Jake's just your Wednesday kissing pal, but maybe you're going steady, right? You're in a situation with Jake. So does that mean that like every Wednesday, just because that happened one Wednesday, like that cab truck sexy time happened Wednesday, is that going to happen again next Wednesday? Maybe. If consent happens again, right? But that specific ongoing consent needs to happen each time, even in a relationship. So that's one of the things that consent is. So that listening, like I mentioned, we don't just listen for the word, right? So there's a difference between, yes, pick me up, let's go for a smooch in your cab, and yeah, I guess so, right? There's a difference. We can tell because of two things: tone of voice, body language, right? So consent includes the word, it includes the body language, it includes the tone of voice, right? So that's a piece of it. And that's what part of the listening job is, right? You're listening for the word, you're listening for the body language, you're listening for the tone of voice. And that's going to make a difference, excuse me, in terms of how good at consent you are, right? And then it's also about respecting, right? So maybe that feels obvious, but you hear a no, you got to respect it, right? Sometimes we have feelings around those no's. What do you feel if someone says no to you? Sometimes, so I do these in schools and in community centers and stuff, talking about consent and sex and mental health and relationships, all this. So when I'm doing this in a school, I'll say, how does it feel if someone says no to you? You'll always get a kid that says, oh, fine, I'm good with that. You'll always get a kid that says, kind of sad or disappointing, right? So you get all these different feelings that might happen for people. Oh, my mother would have said you should have sifted that, Jess, but I didn't. So you want 6 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, so I did 3 cups of flour. Now I'm doing 6 teaspoons of baking powder. I just thought maybe you'd want to learn the SCHNETJE recipe with me. Yeah, so I didn't chill my shortening either. That's a bit of a problem. I'm going to grab this salt. So, whose job is it? This is the next question. Whose job is it to handle that disappointment? To handle that feeling of rejection? To handle whatever like easy or hard feelings you have going on about your answer? Whose job is that to handle it? Mine. Always the person who asks for the consent and gets their response. I gotta handle the feelings I have around that consent, right? So, if I feel sad, do I get to like cry and beg and be like, but I'm so lonely and I haven't gone for a drive and someone's picked up and been smooched on the neck in like 2 weeks. It's been long. No, I don't actually get to pressure someone, say it over and over again, convince someone, and say things until they change their mind, because guess what? It's no longer consent. Then it's something called sexual coercion, which is a form of sexual violence / sexual assault, and it's not okay. So that is really important to know. I'm just going to mix these dry ingredients together. So I'm just going to rewind a second. So does consent have to be dull and embarrassing and awkward? No, said that earlier. Consent can be sexy. Consenting can be cute. Consent can be romantic. Consent can be part of the thing, right? You can make it part of whatever it is you're doing, so everyone's having a better time, right? Anyways, okay, we got the dry goods figured out here. Now I need some milk and I need some shortening. Unfortunately, I did not chill my shortening. That is. So it goes. So it goes when you live a busy life. So, back to consent. What consent is not is trying to turn someone's no into a yes, right? Never consent, no longer consent, doesn't count. It's also not waiting till someone has drugs or alcohol in their body to ask for that consent, right? So what's the whole point of drugs and alcohol? Change how you think, change how you feel, change how you act, right? So that really is something that's pretty significant that happens when folks drink or do drugs. So you can't wait for someone to have drugs or alcohol in their body and think you can ask for consent then. Consent doesn't count when drugs and alcohol are in someone's body. Am I saying that never happens? Am I saying people don't necessarily make some dandelion wine and go hang out in the canola field and drink that wine and until they're feeling rosy-cheeked and then have a little schmunging? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it's not the time to wait and take advantage of someone, right? So what is it the time for? Somebody's, had too much dandelion wine. They aren't going to drive home. They're stuck in the hayloft. What do you want to do for them? Get them a pillow. Get them a glass of water. Get them a bucket in case they puke. Make sure they don't fall off the edge, right? It's that showing that you care, doing those things to really be that kind, thoughtful person. If you have a crush on someone or you're in a relationship with them, not trying to get consent from them at that time, right? So anyway, in wrapping up, I got my wet ingredients. I got my dry ingredients. I'm just gonna pop my head into my cupboard here. And I'm out of shortening. I'm gonna have to go get some real quick. But that is it for Sex Ed with Jessie. Dan Hastigvold.